Any other thoughts from any of our candidates or our speakers?
Yeah, I have something to say.
Oh,
Um,
hey.
I feel like that a lot of times, like America thinks that everyone is a monolith. Like for instance, for the last 10 years, the school board has been trying to change the mascot, which is Redmond. And the image on there is the side face image of feathers. Well, there were 5 major tribes that lived on this in the Southwest here, and none of us wore feathers. So a lot of the times, the society wants us to give you credit for things that you really didn't like do to like the image is more important to white people than like accuracy. And so then soon everything becomes a monolith. And like a couple of the images around here are also like he's stumped down on a horse, you know, the last trail. And those are the images that they're portrayed over and over. And as far as like for Black people and for Latino people, it's always they're overly sexualized. So the stereotypes that are given to brown people are always a lot worse, and they have to do with characters, and the generalizations are very dangerous. And so when we were doing the mascot, the very first thing that the women that got up to try to say we need to remove it did was they started centering the conversations on whiteness. Oh, well, when the Moitawa did their dance, which is the local school dance, they decided to try to do this dance, which was really inappropriate because there are like Navajo tribes here that we do our own cultural teaching. And so we don't want somebody else that's not really qualified or that didn't really go,
Sure.
you know, out and did the educational to represent us. And that's what's happened. And so the stereotypes and those things, they're detrimental to us. My family was an anomaly when we moved into Cedar City. There was 10 of us. My mother and father, the first thing they did was they started making us speak the Queen's English. So we were watching PBS all the time. And it had its good points and bad points because after 10, Benny Hill came on. But she did that to protect us so that we could sound colonized. Well, it didn't have the effect that my mother thought it would. So when we moved to Cedar City, I had 7 siblings. And then with my parents, there's 10 of us. We were the first Navajo family to move into this neighborhood. And we were strange. When we went to church the first Sunday, the looks that we got from the crowd it was scary. But the second that they came to meet us, when we started speaking, because my brothers and sisters and I were raised on the Queen's English, all that, we had very, very good English, so we sound colonized. And all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, you know, you guys are great, you guys are good. And it was really weird, but it still didn't help because regardless, we're still like natives, we're different. And the first thing that my mother did was she got everything together and began teaching everyone. She started telling the stories, our story for ourselves. And the one thing that she used to always say to me in Navajo, and it's really powerful to hear in our language because our language, it is in anything like English, it's expressive. And she would say, white people kid themselves. They always want us to give them credit for being like the law and order people. But how much law and order was there when they came and took this land? How much law and order was there when slavery happened and when they profited off of the backs of those people and then started calling them lazy when they didn't want to work for free anymore? And then now all of a sudden, in spite of the fact that this became it's the wealthiest nation now, if anyone's ever read the 1619 Project, because of Black work, it just seems like there's always this need for us to give American exceptionalism the credit that it just absolutely does not deserve. And when we start to become real about that and real about the colonizers that aren't putting in the same similar mass efforts, it always feels like it's because nobody feels like they have anything to learn. And my mother, there's so many, like, especially now the trauma comes back because now I'm the one doing the work. Coretta Scott King said, every generation has to do it for themselves. My daughter went to school and started getting called the N-word. So the first thing I did was I did what my mother did, and I went out and started to tell my story. But it's, as I see these questions here, there's always this thing about, well, how can we be nice? How can we be civil? How can we not shame them? My mother used to shame the ladies in this, and that's the only way that they ever admitted that what was wrong or that they ever took accountability. The people in Crystal Knot, a woman wrote a poem and she said, I don't like nice people. Nice people watched as the state came in and removed neighbors, friends, the community. Nice doesn't work. There is a stereotype that for brown people, it's much worse for us to be rude than it is for a person of privilege to be violent towards us. And my mother realized that in the very beginning and told us, you get angry and then you get out there and you use that anger. And if I wouldn't have gotten angry, they wouldn't have done anything about my daughter getting bullied. But I used the anger, I channeled it, and now every year, Persephone is the most popular girl in school, and everyone knows that she is an indigenous Navajo, and that these are her ancestral lands. And there's a lot of people that always want to take credit and be over patriotic for things that they really didn't do to make this country great. And then it gives them the excuse to turn around and hate on people that don't look like them.